Welcome to In the Spotlight. I'm Eric Townell. The arts and cultural scene in Rochester and the region are thriving thanks to the efforts of numerous individuals and organizations. Today in the studio, Dawn Lipson visits me. She is the Executive Director of the Arts and Cultural Council for Greater Rochester. And then later on, I'll get a chance to visit with Rick Plimpton. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Optimax, who has many interesting things to say about hiring principles and the arts. So it's a wonderful show. Thanks for being with us. Dawn, it's so great you could be here with us today in the Spotlight. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure, Eric. I'm delighted to be here.
So it's really a busy and exciting time for the arts in Rochester.
It is. We have so many vibrant arts, and we have such an array, and it's all high quality. You know, sometimes when you have a lot, it's a lot of nothing. That's not the case in Rochester. We have amazing people creating amazing things, and that works for the performing arts as well as the visual arts. We have a number of art galleries and exhibits that are always changing over and always bringing us new things, as well as great theater, great music, great dance concerts. So we basically are very fortunate in a city our size to really have it all.
Yeah, so you mentioned a city our size. How does Rochester stack up compared to others?
Well, Rochester is relatively small population-wise. But you compare us to what Cleveland, for example, has to offer, population much bigger, we have more variety.
I see.
In the arts. They are more well-funded and they have more foundations, which we would love to have, but you can't classify Rochester strictly as a city with, let's say, 1 million population, because we have so much more than that would generate. For example, the RPO is what's called a Tier 2 orchestra based on their budget, and they are comparable with orchestras out of South Beach and out of many other small communities. When you compare us, I think the closest city is probably Grand Rapids. But it's very interesting because from the arts and cultural perspective, when we're looking to how can we help the vibrancy of the art scene in our community develop and grow and thrive, we look at other places and try and sort of pick their brains a little bit about, oh, you tried this and it didn't work, so we don't really need to do that again to show it doesn't work. And you tried this and that worked for you, but it worked for you because you have X, Y, and Z. How will that fit Rochester? So we try to look at all of that and bring that all to the table. And we're very fortunate because we have such an array of members. We're able to connect with those members and sort of help them develop partnerships so that if somebody is doing a project on something in particular, and we also know another organization that's kind of interested in that project, trying to get the two of them together and let them create that project that's going to be so much better balanced if it has more than one author, so to speak. So that's one of the things we do at the Arts Council, is kind of get people together, encourage that collaboration, encourage that partnership. We're also a voice politically to let people know you rely on the arts for the vibrancy of this community. The local arts hire people. These are the people that work here, that live here, that play here. And it's very important for economic growth. People don't want to move to a city where there is really no variety of things to do in their leisure time. And here, one of the best recruiting tools we have for bringing in people is the art scene. Some people may love music, and we have an abundance of music. Some people may like plays. We have a great regional theater. Some people may like art galleries. We have the small art galleries. We have Rocco, which is medium size. We have the MAG, which is large. So the scope is tremendous. And you know, we have met several times with Visit Rochester, and we're always on board to help them if they have people coming into town. What would they like to see to make sure those arrangements are met? Because it's beneficial for everybody to recruit the best possible people to stay in Rochester.
No, I saw a national ranking at one point that put Rochester surprisingly high above other cities of its size for the quality of
Yeah, the SMU national ranking put us at 19th in the nation.
19th in the nation.
Yeah, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that we supplied them with a lot of data from all of the organizations. And it really was, surveys like that, you know, especially a national survey, they don't know us. They don't know us as the city of Rochester, just like they don't know St. Augustine, or they might not really know Naples. So the Arts Council supplied them with a lot of information about all the different organizations, all sizes, the number of local artists that we know we have here, the large major organizations. And they were impressed with that because on their ranking system, they didn't have all that information. And that's one of the things a strong Arts Council can do, is to make sure that the good quality arts and culture that we have here is known across the board, not just locally, but for tourists coming in, for nationally. Once this art scene becomes known and it's known as a vibrant art scene, then an organization that might want to apply for an NEA grant, for example. Oh, you're in Rochester. Oh, they have a lot going on. It's a much more favorable atmosphere than if you're applying from somewhere where nobody's ever heard of them. They don't think you can really do that. It gives it some gravitas.
Right, it floats all the boats higher.
It does. It does indeed. So that's what we try to do.
So are you serving primarily individual artists or organizations, or is it a mix?
Well, you cannot be everything to everybody, but we do try to service everyone. So for example, the major organizations, they're fully staffed as a general rule. They can afford to pay people to do their work. There are not that many services that we can provide them. The service we do provide them is the ability to put things on our events calendar so we can publicize more of their events. We send out e-blasts, and our membership in our e-blast list may be slightly different than what they have. So we can help them with some of the promotions. And then we also do some connections. Sometimes we'll hear about different things that they are doing. The medium-sized organizations and the smaller organizations, we can help them find grants to apply for. Sometimes we can provide mentors from some of those large organizations. We have people that mentor some of the people from the smaller organizations, and that becomes critically important when you don't have the funding to staff the way you'd like to staff, especially if you're struggling small to medium-sized. And the individual artists, we do 2 or 3 things for them. Workshops that are available to individual artists. If the individual artist is looking for a gallery to do a show in, we can give them the list of the gallery and the members that we have, so they might be able to make a connection there. And also when we see requests for proposals for public art, we always send that to our artist members so that they know that's coming up and they may or may not want to apply for it. So for them, it's more informational than anything else. But again, our arts organizations and individual artists is what makes this arts community so amazing.
Yes. So now, do the big organizations work together? The GIVA and RPO and et cetera?
Yes, we have something called the M group. The M stands for major. It's the major organizations. I think the cutoff to belong to that group is a budget of $5 million or more. And basically they get together quarterly and they discuss projects, potential projects. They help each other. And as an outgrowth of that, we have some major organizations now that are looking at some very exciting projects coming down the pike. It also helps because when you see things like Rock the Riverway project and a lot of these other projects, to be able to remember that we need to focus on arts as well. It's not just the bricks and mortar going up, but we need to make sure our arts organizations and individual artists that there's some funding there for that so we can keep up this vibrancy. There's just so much going on. One thing I'd like to bring up, if you haven't heard about it yet, is the Arts in the Loop project.
Oh, this is new.
And it had its birth, if you want to call it that, from an idea they had from the Eastman School of Music.
see.
And part of that was they were hearing about all these different arts groups and projects going on, but nothing seemed unified. And so they were trying to figure out, how can we use the arts that we have here and revitalize Main Street, revitalize downtown? Because when they looked, there's most of the arts organizations are not right on Main Street,
Right.
but if you draw a circle from the center of Main Street and you go 5 miles out, they're pretty much all in that
I see.
circle. So what do we do and how do we do that? So there are people from Eastman School is leading that, but we have representatives on there from GIVA, we have individual artists, we have representatives from Rochester Area Community Foundation, RIT is involved with that.
Oh, good.
And they're doing some investigating about how can we do this better? How can we ensure the vitality
Right.
of arts and culture in our community? And they've done a real good job about getting a real cross-section of people involved in this. So, and they've also gone out to visit other cities of our size that have vibrant arts communities to try and find out how they do it and what they do. So now there will be a symposium on June 5th and 6th.
I see.
And that symposium will bring some people in from these other communities that have been successful
I see.
in maintaining the vibrancy or increasing the vibrancy of their arts communities. And the symposium, for the most part, will be open to the public, so as long as you register, you can get in. I think there's a lunch that you may have to pay for that because they're providing food, so you have to pay for the food. But I think it's an opportunity for everyone that has an interest in the arts to go hear what these other people have said. Now, some people will say, well, they don't know Rochester. Well, they're not going to tell us exactly how to do things here. Nobody can do that but us.
Right.
But what they can tell us is some of the things that they found out, some of the ways things work, and also maybe tell us about some of the connections, the connectors that made these things viable and
Right.
made them work. So that's what we're hoping for. It will go, they're working on getting an email or a website. You can tell I'm not the techno person at the office. So that you can just click on the button to register, and then you'll be able to register.
That's great.
So, and if you go to our website, we will be putting up the dates of the symposium so you can at least save the date with a little bit of a listing about what's going on. Because I believe there are 6 sessions or 7 sessions. So some sessions may be more interesting than others depending on where you're coming from.
Got it. So now, in terms of what the Arts Council does for its members, are there grants that you offer, or what kind of capacity building do you offer them?
Okay, we are very fortunate to partner with Rochester Area Community Foundation. They have some donors at the smaller level that want their money to go to arts organizations, but they want the money to make an impact. So they pool that money and they give it to us as grants.
I see.
And then we have panels that meet, review the applications, and then we make these grants. We let the people know that they're getting this grant from the Rochester Area Community Foundation. That's where the money came from. But we are the ones that are set up actually to do the grants panel. We have a rotating panel of 10 people, and they come from dance, historic, library, music, all kinds of backgrounds. We take them from places that would not be eligible for the grants because the grants are for medium and small size organizations. And so we would never ask those people to sit on the panel because their organizations would probably be eligible to apply. So we're very careful about that. And we're very careful about the applications. Before the panelists get the applications, we make sure these are indeed certified to be nonprofits. They have their current CHARs in, that everything is done the way it should be done to be considered for the grant.
The CHAR is the Charities Registration that New York State requires, yes.
Yeah. I forget about the shorthand sometimes.
That's okay.
So, we do that piece of the administration for all that. We also gather reports, and we report back to the Rochester Area Community Foundation that this organization got this much money and this is what they did with it. We used to do, the Arts Council used to do decentralization grants, which are now done out of the CNY, Central New York.
I see.
We'd like to get those back. Those are NISCA grants,
I see.
and they're a little bit different than the capacity building grants. So when Central New York actually gets that money, we do put that on our website because we want our folks to apply for it.
Yeah.
But we would much prefer if it was administered here. But the administration just wasn't configured the way it needed to be to make sure those grants were dealt with appropriately, you know, a couple of years ago, so they had to move the grants. But hopefully we'll get that back.
And what's just over the horizon for the Arts and Cultural Council, would you say?
Well, we're very excited because we are hoping to get a grant to promote the celebration of the arts in March 2020.
Fantastic.
That would be a celebration for the whole community.
Mm-hmm.
We create something we're calling a cultural pass you can apply for on the computer. It doesn't cost you anything. And with that pass, you get access for this month to various organizations, different types of things. We're getting a lot of organizations to buy into this and be willing to support it. We don't have a complete list yet. We're working on that now. And I think it does a couple of things. First of all, members of our community that may think a particular organization or offering is not right for them or too expensive, they can get to see it firsthand and maybe find out a little bit more about it. It also will help us promote what we have, because even the most sophisticated concert goer may not know that there's a great contemporary art exhibit at Roco, for example, or about the great new art space that RIT's opened up downtown. So it gives us a chance to promote all those things. And the other thing is, it will give us some data, because then we should be able to acquire from the application for this pass, and then using those numbers to figure out who went where. So if we're the RPO and, you know, gee, we only service these 3 zip codes according to that's where the pass was used, that tells us something.
Yeah.
So we don't have strong, real data for that. Some of our data is very old, and quite frankly, it's not cohesive.
Right.
So this is a way to gather more data. And as you know, when you apply for grants, it's much better if you can say, based on this information, we know this many people want to come and see this or hear this, and we get this from. So that will be a member benefit that you'll be able to, as an organization, if you're a part of this, you'll get that information, which helps you with your grant writing and many other things.
Well, it sounds like there are many benefits of being a member of the Arts and Cultural Council for Greater Rochester. It's been a pleasure to talk to Dawn Lipson. She is the Executive Director of the Arts Council here in Rochester. Dawn, thank you so much for giving us such good advice and such good information today. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
It's wonderful. And now we get a chance to visit Optimax, an optics firm here in Rochester, and talk to its CEO, Rick Plimpton. Stay with us.
All right, Monroe, you ready? Monroe. Here we go, the butterfly. Ready? Ooh.
The pioneering industrialist George Eastman firmly believed that for a community to thrive, technology and the fine arts must develop together in parallel streams. That heritage persists today in Rochester, we're very happy to say. Here to discuss how the arts and technology thrive together is Mr. Rick Plimpton. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Optimax, an optics manufacturing firm in Ontario, New York. Thank you so much for coming in, Rick. It's great to see you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We actually met at a gala benefit for a nonprofit arts organization here in town. That was great. So thanks so much for your philanthropy as well.
Sure.
So it was so interesting to talk to you that evening because you mentioned that in hiring new workforce for Optimax, you actually look for people with arts background and prefer that.
Yeah, so at Optimax we make precision optics for research and industry. For example, we were a key supplier to NASA for many of their programs. We made all the camera lenses for the Mars rovers, Spirit, Opportunity, and Curiosity, and many other NASA programs. But as we grow our business, workforce development through the years has been a limiting factor. We can't, even here in Rochester, where optics and photonics is big industry, we can't go out on the street and hire people that know how to do what we do. So we try to hire people with fundamental skills or traits that we can leverage to teach them how to make precision optics. And we found a strong correlation between musicians or artists and advanced manufacturing. And I can give you some examples of that. So a musician will learn how to multitask, to play an instrument and think about other things at the same time. And a musician will learn tempo. And these are skills or traits that can be leveraged because they're very similar to what we need on the production floor. The other types of things that a musician learns to do is continuous improvement. So a musician's not afraid of doing the same thing repetitively. But the thing that's great about musicians is they're aware as they're doing it, they're looking for continuous improvement. And this is something we build into the culture at Optimax. When we're making optics, we want to do it the best we can, but also think about how we might do it better if we did it again, or how we might do it more efficiently if we did it again. And so these are all great traits that we can leverage on the production floor. Any musician that has worked in a team, in a band, has learned some team dynamics.
Sure.
Hopefully they've learned to respect others' points of view. They appreciate diversity in the group when it comes to writing a new song or addressing an issue or solving a problem, these types of things. Musicians that have worked with modern equipment generally are not computer phobic. They're not afraid of electronics, right? They've worked with electrical instruments, they've maybe worked with soundboards, things like this. In advanced manufacturing, many of our machines and metrology instruments are computer controlled. So we need people that are not afraid to learn a new software package or not afraid to get in front of a computer or a digital screen and run a machine using the software that's been developed specifically for that machine. And so these are all wonderful traits that musicians have that we can leverage on our production floor.
That's phenomenal. Now, Rochester is well known for its higher education institutions like Rochester Institute of Technology and University of Rochester, both that support optics training. Are you getting the kind of employees with the background, the arts background that you're looking for from these institutions? I was wondering.
Yeah, here in the Rochester region, there's wonderful schools, and it starts really in the elementary schools where we're teaching STEM education or STEAM education. We like to put the A in there for arts. Right. And we've got wonderful community colleges with Monroe Community College and Finger Lakes Community College, and then the universities that you mentioned, and others. There are other universities as well. The schools can teach the fundamentals, math, science, things like this. But we at Optimax have a continuous learning program where every employee has a learning plan, and each year we're reviewing what they've learned and what they'd like to learn and developing, upgrading their plan so that we systematically strengthen our team year after year.
That's phenomenal. And so how wide is your reach when you're attracting new employees?
Most of the employees we draw from the local community. Occasionally we do get people that will approach us from other areas of the country, but I would say greater than 90% of our employees are drawn from the Finger Lakes region.
I see. And do your employees participate in the art scene here in Rochester and elsewhere?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have quite a few employees that play in bands. In fact, we haven't done it in a couple of years, but we used to have a party every summer called Optipalooza, where we would set up a stage out in the parking lot, tap a couple kegs, and different bands would take the stage as the day went on. That was great fun. But like I say, it's been a couple of years since we've done that. We've been so crazy busy. This year, we're doubling the size of our facility. We've hired over 100 new employees in the past year. And so what's really great or unbelievable about our journey is that when I joined the company in 1995, we thought it'd be great to grow the company to 40 people. Today we're over 400 employees and still growing at about 15 to 20% per year. And I feel like we're just getting started. There's so much opportunity out there for us, and the Rochester community has just a wealth of knowledge and expertise that we can leverage in the global marketplace.
Well, that's phenomenal. Now, it used to be that even at the Kodak company, the musicians would form a company choir or a company band. Do you have anything like that at Optimax?
Not yet, but we do have a wellness program, and I'll have to mention that to the wellness committee and see what they think of that. That's a great idea.
That's so fun. And now talk about how Optimax is involved in the community as a corporate sponsor. Are you involved sponsoring the arts or in any way, or?
Yeah, so Optimax, most of the activities that we have going on, and there's a lot of different things happening, are directly geared toward workforce development. So we do a lot of work. We invite hundreds of students out to visit our facility. This is one of the strange things about advanced manufacturing. You're not going to see a TV show about advanced manufacturing. You know, there's TV shows about lawyers and doctors and things like this, but if we want children to understand what advanced manufacturing is about, we really need to invite them into our facilities. And I'm talking about manufacturers throughout our community.
Right.
Many companies are doing this, and it's helping the young people understand that there are opportunities for them in manufacturing. Not all manufacturing has fled the country.
Now, what can arts organizations and institutions like the Arts and Cultural Council for Greater Rochester do to support what industry needs in terms of workforce?
Yeah, that's a tough question. So I'm not sure that there's a direct correlation, but as we've identified, there's definitely an indirect correlation where I think it's true also in the medical community that, you know, if you have a medical professional with an arts background, there's definitely some advantages in how they can perform their job and how quickly they can learn new tasks.
Does it seem like people would move here if the arts environment were rich and supported them in their avocational interests? You know, they like to play instruments, and so they work at Optimax and play or sing?
Okay, that's a baited question.
Sorry.
But I think there's no doubt that, you know, having the arts is not only as good for professional development for individuals, but it's also great for the community, you know, to provide for entertaining leisure time, you know.
Right, and a little bit of socialization and continued learning.
Yeah, I recently learned of a club downtown that's providing live jazz weekly, and so I'm delighted to see that again. I'd love to see more live music in the community.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, it's just great to have your input and, you know, your support for the arts in the community, and all this interesting, those words are so valuable to people in the arts. And Optimax is going great guns, so congratulations on that. And best wishes for your continued success.
If I can, let me just express one other thing to you. I think through small businesses in our community, that's one of the best ways that we can grow a community, is to grow our small businesses. And I'll give you a specific example. Please. So at Optimax, over the last 20 years, we've generated $300 million in revenue. And half of each revenue dollar is shared with our workforce, and they spend it in the community at Wegmans or at an auto dealership or what have you. In the next 20 years, Optimax will generate about $2 billion in revenue, and half of that will be given to our workforce and spent wherever they spend their money. And of course, some of the money that they're going to spend will be shared with, you know, support of the arts and other activities in the community. But that's how you grow a community. You grow these little businesses and share the wealth with the workers, and then let them distribute it to the rest of the...
And contribute to the education of the youth.
Absolutely.
That's phenomenal input, yeah. Well, that's all wonderful words of wisdom. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's great to have you here. My guest has been Rick Plimpton. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Optimax, a precision optics manufacturing firm in Ontario, New York. Earlier in the program, we heard from Dawn Lipson. She's the Chief Executive Officer of the Arts and Cultural Council for Greater Rochester. Thank you both to our wonderful guests for joining us here in the Spotlight today. I'm Eric Townell. See you next time. In the Spotlight is a production of Penfield Television with sponsorship from Nolan & Associates, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Advisor. If you enjoy this program, please find us on Facebook, like and share the program, and find our full playlist on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching.